So the 2026 Winter Olympics have drawn to an end, and being a big fan of the Games, I've had an exhausting 2 weeks, a rather unproductive 2 weeks, as I've spent hours watching all those sports I rarely have time to watch in the other 4 years when they're not on. And I feel sort of like a loner here because in Spain there isn't much of a tradition. And so not many people follow the games, let alone participate, let alone win a medal. The general public regards them as an item of news. That's true. We have the games coming and they're on. But practically every Spaniard that I've brought this subject up with in the past couple of weeks sort of responds in the same way. And that's indifference. Yes, they say, that's right. It's the games, but nothing else, and they really have no intention of following them at all. Ironically, there is plenty of TV coverage in Spanish. They follow a lot of the games and a lot of the different sports, I might add, and yet nothing seems to grab the Spanish's interest here. To give you an idea, today we had the gold medal ice hockey game, the final, between the U.S. and Canada, and it was on TV, it was being played, and the village restaurant where I go to sometimes, where we have a place up in the mountains, had a soccer game on. It was a very unimportant soccer game, okay teams, but really nothing relevant, and so that got priority over a major event like the ice hockey finals of the Winter Olympics. Now, part of this low attention given to them must have something to do with Spain's extraordinarily discreet performance in the Winter Olympics over the decades. Going into the 2026 edition in Milano-Cortina, Spain had harvested only 5 medals in its entire history, and just 5. And that included a drought that went from 1992 until 2018. Now, before we get to this year's results, let's take a look at what had been achieved up until now. Spain's first medal could not have been more spectacular. It was a gold in downhill skiing, or in alpine skiing, in slalom, and it was won by a popular skier named Francisco Fernandez Ochoa, more commonly known as Paco Fernandez Ochoa, and he did that in 1972 in the Sapporo Games in Japan. Fernando Ochoa was from Madrid, and he got his early training on the slopes of the Sierra de Guadarrama, which is the mountain range just to the north of the city. The win immediately catapulted him into legendary status here in Spain, since no one had ever won a medal, let alone a gold medal, and especially in such a famous sport like slalom. Even though he never won another medal in the Olympics, he did pretty well in some of the World Championship series. That was basically his big moment. He was a very popular man, very affable, and well-liked. Now, the next medal didn't appear until 20 years later in the 1992 Olympics in Albertville, France, when Paco's sister, Blanca Fernandez Ochoa, took the bronze medal, also in the slalom category. I remember that happening. I believe in the first run she was actually in second place and then slipped one notch to third place, but she did take the medal, the bronze medal. Going into that event, there was a chance that she actually might take the gold too, but still, she won a medal for Spain and another medal for the Fernandez Ochoa family. Now, sadly, the success of the Fernandez Ochoa family on the slopes turned into tragedy in their private lives. Paco died in 2006 of lymphatic cancer. He was only 56 at the time, and it was a great tragedy for everyone. And Blanca was found dead in 2019 outside of her hometown of Cerceria, which is a mountain town to the northwest of Madrid. She was found in the hills nearby after having committed suicide after a long struggle with depression, which some feel was possibly fed in part by the loss of her brother, Paco, whom she loved and admired very much. So that was very sad news. And that was it. And for the next 30 years, not one medal. With an asterisk there was an exception. In 2002, Spain appeared to have another winner. It was a German-born, naturalized Spaniard named Johan Muleg, which they called Juanito. Johan is John or Juan, so they had the diminutive Juanito. And he won 3 gold medals in cross-country skiing. I remember this happening. In fact, I remembered the interview with this guy before the Olympics actually happened, just a week or two, and what their expectations were. They really didn't know what to expect. I believe this guy lived in Murcia, which is in the southeast of Spain. A pretty warm climate down there. You wouldn't think it was the best place to train for cross country. Anyway, after he won those medals, everyone was quite excited, but it didn't last long as he was stripped of those honors after he was caught for doping. Now, Mulig had been in top-level competition for some time, but he had never achieved anything great. And a year or two before, his performance enhanced greatly, which made authorities suspicious that he was using performance enhancement substances, and that was exactly the case. So those 3 gold medals were taken away, and the dearth carried on for another 16 years until 2018, when Spain won 2 medals. Regino Hernandez won a bronze in snowboarding cross, and Javier Fernandez won a bronze in the men's singles figure skating competition, which was a major first for Spain to be winning a medal in figure skating. It had never really been one of Spain's strengths. And following that, in the next edition in Beijing in 2022, Spain continued its modest streak when Queralt Castellet won a silver in the women's half-pipe snowboarding. Castellet had already made somewhat of a name for herself in the women's half-pipe snowboarding circuit, so the result wasn't entirely surprising at all. She was definitely a medal hopeful, and she got the silver that year. Now, this year seemed like it was going to end the hopes for a hat trick, and by that I mean making it to the podium for 3 Olympic Games in a row. But in the last 2 days, Spain raked in 3 medals in 3 events in ski-mountaineering, which was debuting this year in 2026. This is a sport that consists of sort of trekking uphill on your skis normally, and then descending in sort of traditional alpine skiing. And this is a new sport, and this was its first year. And Oriol Cardona won a gold for the men's event. That was the second gold for Spain in its history. And Ana Alonso won a bronze in the women's event. And then they had a mixed relay, and it was Oriol and Ana together. They joined forces to take 3rd place and another bronze, making it 3 medals for this year's games. Now, that is a major uptick in the overall number of medals for Spain. It's a whopping 60% increase in Spain's total Winter Olympics tally in its history. And since 2018, Spain has won 75% of its total medals in Winter Olympics history. If you compare those numbers to the 190 medals it has won in the Summer Games, well, you can see that production in the Winter Games is generally very low, quite modest, to say the least. But seeing that 75%, as I was telling you, of its total number of medals have been won in the last 3 Winter Olympics, we can see sort of a somewhat of an encouraging trend here. And hopefully in the future, this country will continue to improve on its performance. So anyway, that's the rundown on Spain's performance at this Olympics, which has ended up being a little bit more positive than most of us expected. If I had done this just 4 days ago, we would have said that Spain still only had 5 medals. So in the end, it's been good for Spain. And in fact, we can say it's been an excellent addition for them. So Spain has something to say for itself here. And that'll be all for our podcast brought to you by Brian's Spain Domain. Please feel free to leave us any comments or questions because we love the feedback. And you can subscribe on our podcast on Spotify, Amazon, and Castos. Or if you wish to support Brian's Spain Domain, we greatly appreciate it. We work very hard to provide you with the best information about Spain, Spanish history, and Spanish culture. You can do so by clicking on our PayPal donate button, or if you want to have access to absolutely all of our podcasts and support us regularly, you can check us out on Patreon at the link provided below. You can also check us out on our YouTube channel and support us by subscribing. Stay well, stay safe, and hasta pronto.